Hi, everybody. I wanted to do a quick video this week to go over the research project, which we're getting started with. First thing I want to say, you will not be writing a research paper for this class. So if you have any anxiety about that, don't worry about it. We are going to be doing 5 different research assignments. Some of them will involve some writing, but not a full formal research paper. So the overall purpose of this assignment is manyfold. Um, Part of it is to learn to distinguish between different types of sources. That's something we're going to begin covering this week and we'll continue to cover for the rest of the class. Part of it is to learn how to find, as well as identify those different types of sources and to practice using library search tools as well as you may, in this week's assignment, end up using Google to find sources on the internet. Some of the later assignments require you to use Google search tools, or sorry, library search tools. Um, Also, another purpose of the assignment is to get you practicing reading and understanding the points made in a source, depending on the type of source it is, or regardless of the type of source it is, and also integrating that with your own ideas about your topic. This week's assignment is the research proposal and background research, where you're going to choose a topic. There's a template that you're going to use that's within the research assignment number 1. You will find a background source. So I'll say a little bit about that in a minute, what I'm looking for, but you'll fill out the template with information about that source and what you learned about your topic. So it's just filling in the boxes, making a copy of the template and filling in the boxes. The next research assignment number 2, you'll be finding 2 sources, a book from the library and an audiovisual media source, which you'll probably find online rather than through the library, depending on your topic. That could be a podcast, a TED Talk, or other video, something like that. And then research assignment 3 is going to be a periodical article, so something from a magazine, newspaper, scholarly journal, something that's published on a regular schedule. That will have to come through a library database. And there's an extra credit opportunity if you use a peer-reviewed journal article. And that's something we're going to cover. Exactly what those are and how to use them, is how to read them, is something we'll cover later in the class. The assignment number 4 is where you will present your research. So that is going to involve creating a thesis statement that answers the research question you're going to be identifying this week, or research questions. Your question might evolve a little bit, especially between this week and the research assignment number 2. But by the end of research assignment number 2, you should have a pretty clear focused research question. So in research assignment number 4, you will be answering that question with evidence from your sources and sharing that with your classmates in a discussion assignment. And then you will also be answering some questions about the research process and how that was for you, what you learned, what was challenging, what worked well, that sort of thing. And you'll be responding to some classmates' posts too. And then if you have at that point in the class, which is, I believe, week 7, if you have enough points to pass the class at that point, you do not have to do research assignment number 5. If you need more points to boost up your points to a passing score, there's an annotated bibliography assignment, which is where you will take the 3 in-depth sources that you use, so not the one from this week, but the one from assignments 2 and 3, and you will basically summarize what each of those sources is about, describe how you know it's credible, and how it helped you answer your research question. So there's an overview of this right below this video on the homepage. There is a little PDF that gives an overview of each of these the assignments. I'll go into more detail as we get to the other ones. But for this week, for research assignment number 1, I just wanted to say a little bit about that. I'm looking for a research question on your topic that is narrow enough that you can reasonably find some sort of answer to it, some way to address it with just a few sources, but broad enough that you will be able to find a book that addresses it, some kind of video or podcast or something like that, and a periodical article. So for example, if I wanted to do something on climate change, how does climate change affect animals is way too broad a topic. How does climate change affect mollusks that live in the Santa Barbara Channel? Might be too narrow a topic. I might have trouble finding a book on that topic. How does climate change affect mollusks along the coast of California? I could probably do that. So I will give you feedback for most of these research assignments. It's very likely that I will suggest some ways that you could revise the assignment to improve it and to earn more points. So if you're concerned about the scope of your topic and whether it will work, I'm going to give you some feedback on that. Other thing I want to say about this week's assignment is, what do I mean by a background source? So definitely go through all of the videos and tutorials this week, because those will help you understand the research process better if you're new to it, and give you some ideas about how to get started with background research. But background sources should be factually based. So their intention should be to provide broad, general, factual information on a topic. A background source is not likely to answer your specific research question, or at least not answer it thoroughly, but will help give you some broader understanding and context that could help inform where you take your research when you look for other sources. So, for example, a recent encyclopedia article could be a good background source. If there's, to use my climate change example, if there's a professional organization of scientists who study mollusks, perhaps, that might be too niche. I'm not sure if there is such an organization, but if there's some kind of nonprofit organization that you can find that might have background information related to your topic, some information on their website that's intended to introduce people to the topic could be a good source of background information. Things that would not make good sources would be, for example, a detailed research study on that looked at the reproductive cycles of mollusks over the last 10 years. That's going to be very narrowly focused and focus on presenting the results of specific research. That could be a good source later on, not for this assignment. Any source that is intended to sell you anything, so a website related to a topic. This comes up a lot with health topics. If you're looking for, if your topic is related to a specific illness or disorder, let's say diabetes, if you find a website that's like, oh, we'll cure your diabetes, buy this supplement, and here's an introduction to what diabetes is, that's not going to be necessarily a credible source. Their purpose is to sell you something. Similarly, if you find a source whose main purpose is to convince you of something, present an argument or opinion, that's not going to be a good background source. So really focus on things that are general, provide overview and context, and are designed to be factual and as unbiased as possible. Nothing is completely unbiased and objective. That's something we're also going to be addressing with some of the tutorials in this class, but you should find sources that are at least intending to present the information in that way, rather than trying to sell you something, convince you of something, things like that. So I hope that clarifies both the whole broad research project and this week's specific assignment. As always, let me know if you have any questions, and I'm here to help you succeed. Have a great week.